Hey, everybody. Welcome to the weekly.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the open mic. We do this every week. For those of you that are new, MSPs asked that we show you what we've been doing to enhance the platform and to fix issues, as well as you folks wanted to do a little R&D or rob and duplicate what automations your peers are building. With that, a couple reminders. I can count off the top of my head, let me think, how many MSPs have been successful building automations without asking questions? 2, 4, 20, 0. 0 MSPs have ever been successful with automation without asking questions. In fact, one of my biggest indicators of whether or not an MSP will succeed with automation is whether or not they think they're good at it, right? The folks that don't think they're good at automation tend to be the ones that excel at it because they're open to learn and they're open to ask questions. Speaking of asking questions, use your Discord, whether it's the public channels or your private channels. Those are a great place to ask questions. If you're interacting with a Roost person, make sure you're tagging them or responding in a thread because we're monitoring hundreds of channels at the same time. Speaking of Discord, embrace it. Embrace the future with us. Before Discord, there was Slack. Before Slack, there was email. Before email, we used rotary phones. Before phones, we used, ham radio, Morse code, other ways to communicate. It's the future. If you'd like us to step back in time with you, please reach back out to us and we can do that. Just because we use Discord, though, doesn't mean we don't do tickets, right? So we use a PSA just like you folks. If it's something that's going to be longer than just a quick Q&A, of course, we're going to open a ticket so we can track it. I do have a couple random things for you. First off, I wanted to talk, by the way, I'm probably sending most of my teams in a panic because I told none of them I was going to talk about these things because that's how I roll. First off, I'm going to share. Hopefully I can share. Can you folks see my screen?
Yes.
I'm not in slide sharing mode because this isn't a super serious, like I'm not demoing anything, right? We're constantly, I just wanted to give folks a reminder, we're constantly working to improve performance and stability. One of the things with Roost that's different than any other automation platform is we don't charge you by usage. And so our growth does not grow like a typical product does, right? So we bring on 10 more MSPs and I can't predict whether or not someone's going to use the platform normally or if someone's going to potentially want to sync their IT glue every 8 minutes.
I'm sorry about that, Aaron, by the way.
It's so we're always finding new performance challenges and stability things. I just wanted to talk about just the last 30 days, what we've done. So in the last 30 days, we've moved to RabbitMQ from Kafka to reduce noisy neighbor task. Just as an example of this, we were streaming from Kafka to consumers to pick up your automation jobs. But if one task that was streamed from Kafka to a consumer to run the task had a really long wait, like a 2 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes for that task to run, every single other workflow task for random workflows throughout the entire platform would have to wait that 5 to 10 minutes. That no longer occurs. RabbitMQ is the opposite. Instead of streaming to the consumer now pulls from. And the cool part about that also is it allows us to deploy code without pausing. In the past, there was about a 90-second processing pause when we deployed code, and now there is no processing pause. In fact, we deployed code several times this week, and nobody even noticed. Since Roost is a state machine, we have this big piece of data called a conductor that's loaded every single time a task is run. That way, any consumer can pick it up and know what to do next because of the conductor. And we did some really big changes, enhancements, and some other performance enhancements as well. That allowed us to increase our max throughput from 60,000 messages a minute to about 170,000 messages a minute. So it's almost a 3x performance improvement just in the past 30 days. We've also added additional 32 cores and 256 gigs to our database cluster. But you folks probably wouldn't even noticed that because our other changes have had a much bigger impact in the CPU additions. This is a database server in our cluster, and we rolled out some changes between the 15th and 16th, and you can see just in the amount of data being sent to that database cluster has dropped almost 5-fold or more to it, which is pretty cool. If you look at the total IOPS, this is the storage IO that we're doing. If you look between the 15th and 16th, the IOPS are much lower and sustained. In fact, you can see there on the 11th, we spiked at over 50,000 IOPS a second. We're spiking nowhere near that. So the performance has already been greatly improved over the past 30 days. We do have some things that we're still working on. We're chasing down some issues around failure to initialize workflow. It's not as straightforward as you would expect to find the issue because our logs are saying the same exact things as your logs are saying, which is simply failure to initialize workflow. So today we've made some changes to our connection pools with SQL that we think may fix it. And then also we think there was an issue with our regional crate replication that was also resolved today that may have caused it as well. So this could already be resolved, but more to come. We've experienced some increased database locking, and we've got some work around that we're currently doing, as well as some general performance enhancements to the engine that we've already identified. And so we think we can get it over 200,000 messages a minute, likely in the coming weeks. Any questions on that before I move on? Did see FidoNet when I was a kid. I did run BBSs and actually got kicked off. My BBS got kicked off FidoNet. If anyone wants to hear what happened, they're so conservative. My BBS name was called Write Protected, spelled RIGHT instead of WRITE, and they thought my BBS name sounded like a pirate board. Very conservative back in the day. Any questions on that? Things should even continue to get faster here. It's already dramatically faster from what we're monitoring. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I was going to mention it on main stage. uh, but unfortunately couldn't make it to Write a Boom. Last week was Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week. And I spent it in Boston in the cardiac ICU with my son, getting a procedure done on the same exact week. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up is just a reminder. If you have a kid or family member, especially someone younger than you, and they have a heart defect, take them, don't listen to your doctors nearby. Don't, like, I'm sure you trust your cardiologist in your local city, but your local city is not a cardiologist or cardiac center of excellence. And if you're unaware of where these center of excellences are, there's one in Boston, there's one in Texas, and there's one in California. So unless you live by one of those places, don't go there. They're great for checkups, but if you need work done, go to a center of excellence. And if you do have a kid or close younger family member with a cardiac issue, please reach out to me and we can talk shop. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ash.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. As you can see, we've got a room here. We are live from Write a Boom. We do this when we are at events. If you're ever at an event and you want to join live, we always send out the details, or you can message me. So keep that in mind. Today, we're actually going to have a little bit of a conversation around the pre-day as well. But first, we are actually going to do our updates, and we are going to have one demo as well. So we'll start with our dev updates, and I think Daniel has a few things to go over.
I sure do. I'll share my screen here. The first thing to go over, I guess the first update for this week, and something that I'm pretty proud to somewhat be a part of, or at least watch, is our engineering team of between, I think, 30 and 40 people released 93 tickets this week. That's like almost 3 per team member. And our QA team, as well as internal people, had to help with the QA process for that. So it was just a great work, and it shows with all the performance improvements that we've been seeing lately. The other new thing this week is Canada, our own a nation on its own, crushed the USA in the Four Nations hockey tournament this week, which means that I won my bet, and I don't have to dress in a Mardi Gras costume when I go to dinner with our CPO, Frank. So that's wonderful too. But yeah, some cool stuff that we released here. We released early this week support access. So support access allows users to enable and disable ROC staff write access into their organization. If you go into settings and permissions here, you can see when you get to that page, it's closed. You just open it up and you can enable support access. This will let ROC support help you out with whatever you need. And you can set expiry on there, or you can leave it on for eternity. Another thing that we released this week. So one thing you'll notice in these notes is there are not 93 items in these notes. Kind of grouped them a little bit by first bug fixes and chores, as well as new features, and then also by kind of subcategories here for a little bit added clarity. The next thing that I was just going to talk about is we've improved some of the visibility into time savings. That's going to be an ongoing theme in the next few months, I would say, just improving that visibility into that. The time saved metric previously was buried deep within a workflow's configuration. So you had to make a few clicks to go and see that. And so it wasn't surfaced well and difficult to maintain. But now if you go to your workflows page, you can see that there's a time saved category. If you don't see it, it should be there when you add or remove columns. And from here, you can actually configure that time savings directly from this modal. Another thing that we released is Jinja Defang. That's a new filter that we have. So if you have a URL, you can use the defang. We also use the defang filter, and it will create, it will defang that URL, as well as we have a refang filter. So if I just do that, it will turn it back to Google. And the reason why this is useful, I can't remember what Dan told me. He said makes URLs not URLs. I think that was a direct quote from him, Dan Hayes. So if you have any questions about it, you can ask him. But the reason why this is cool is if you have spam email reports or anything that might be exposing potentially malicious URLs, you can defang these URLs, which will reduce accidental clicks from when they're investigating tickets or anything like that. What else do we have on here? We are currently also working on improving our crate documentation, just visibility into what our crates do. So we've added a public crates API, and that API is now going to start feeding our crates documentation on our doc site. We have a ton of bug fixes that went out, as well as chores, and they're all grouped here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to through Discord or to your CSM or support, or even directly to me. I'm fine with that. We have some stuff coming soon. We're still working on the generic GraphQL action. We're doing some testing internally as well with a couple of people who needed this for some or who are willing to test this out for us. We have granular forms permissions coming. We have SyncMonkey, among other integrations. We've started on Cisco Meraki as well. It's a big one. Support access logs. This is our first kind of big foray into logging within the platform and exposing, hey, this person was granted support access. As well as a new workflow executions dashboard widget, which should help show what your most useful workflows are and how much time they're saving you and their success rates and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's it for me today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Now we will jump over to JP.
Hello. All right, we're gonna go here. All right. For the crate marketplace, we released a new crate that allows us to basically bulk add technicians' phones to tenants in Duo. So if you have like a new technician, it'll allow you to add their phone on your Duo tenants from a single form. Just have an example of it right here. It's kind of what it looks like. You can also bulk remove and generate an audit report that goes to a ticket. We have a number of bug fixes listed, and next week we're going to be releasing a Microsoft 365 subscription renewal alert crate as well. So that's what's going on in the crate marketplace team.
Hey, thank you, JP. Before we move on, Alden, did you say you had a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question about the read-only access, or the write being blocked. Is there also a way to block reading? I know that's a weird request, but is there a way to lock down reading without giving permission?
At this point, no. There isn't a easy way for us to do that, but we are definitely working more towards locking down your environments. But yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump over to our education update now.
Hey everyone, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Sorry I can't be part of the Brandwich, Brandon, but next time we'll get there, buddy. We'll get there. All right, can everybody see my screen? Awesome. All right, we got quite a bit to talk about today, but I'll try to be fast so we can get to all of the meat of the call. First of all, shout outs to our very own George. Michael, Dennis, Daniel, and Brandon for passing the Foundations certification. You will all get your prestigious Certified Rooster badge, especially you, George. And George will finally get access to one of the super secret Discord channels. Technically, he already had access, but we didn't actually want him there until he was certified. So now he's allowed. So shout outs to everybody. Shout outs to Robert and Niels as well for passing the Clean Automation certification. For those of you who may be new, we really encourage you to take both of these and get certified on both of these. They are kind of two peas in a pod, and they will help you immensely with learning to automate. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. Speaking of which, our next Roost Foundations Bootcamp, which is a condensed 2-day forum that's live with the legendary Eddie Chow, is going to be March 3rd and 4th. And you can also sign up for office hours as well if you have any questions as you're learning and you want to work through some of these things with Eddie. Otherwise, check us out in the Cluck U Discord channel. It's very active. We have a lot of you guys participating. You're super helpful. And we will jump in and help you guys out as well if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Next up, for some of the updates specifically for Cluck U and for our documentation. One of the big updates that we have coming for Cluck University is that starting March 10th, we are going to shift the way we are doing trainings. I've mentioned this in the last few weeks, but essentially we're going to change the time so that we have more opportunity to go through the foundations live with Eddie, since that's a starting point for a lot of customers. And we really want to highlight Jinja and troubleshooting. Those are some things that a lot of people need more help with. And so we wanted to make sure that that is a regular offering. So we're going to be switching to that. And then we're going to be shifting to a monthly clean automation bootcamp as well. You can obviously continue to do the self-serve for either of these, but we want to make sure that there are some live sessions so you can jump in, you can talk with Eddie, you can ask questions, and you can get all of the help you need as you're learning to automate in Roost. I'm going to jump down here next. There is a big list here. There's a couple of that I wanted to just shout out. But don't forget, you can give us feedback either in Discord or we have some forums here. And otherwise, we have some major updates here. First, we have a ton of integration documentation. I just want to shout out Lisa on our team. She's kind of the queen of documentation right now, and she's been doing an incredible amount of work making sure that we are getting new documentation coming out. And we are going through that backlog of requests and things that we got from you and some of our internal teams as well. So shout outs to Lisa. So we have WebRoot integration docs up, Cove, the support access documentation is available as well, Bitdefender, Nodeware integration documentation, GitHub integration documentation. And then we've made some updates to a few others as well, including the amend mailbox permissions crate. We've added that, shout outs to Ray, and display validation errors and workflow required fields, as well as an update to our introductory trigger documentation. There's more about core triggers, and we're going to continue building that out as well, and a brief intro to organization mapping. The two things that I skipped that I really want to shout out is the team has been hard at work also making sure that we have an onboarding checklist for those of you who are brand new. You're going through and you need to understand better what you need to be onboarded, to have everything set up to jump into our courses and get things going. So I'm just going to jump over here. Many of you are familiar with the Getting Started section. We've broken this down into different categories now. So we have our automation inspiration. This is really talking about where to get started, how to think about automation, how you identify what to automate. Then we have the Roost overview section now, and this gets into the platform. So Roost terminology, platform overview, etc. So those two are pretty much what we've had before, just reorganized. But the big change here is our onboarding checklist, and this will go through really getting started and getting onboarded. And there's a bunch of videos that Clea has been hard at work on. We have all of this organized for you very beautifully, and we have information about integrating your PSA, RMM, etc., and some stuff here about organization variables, walking through and understanding those and getting those set up. So we'll continue to build out this experience for everybody. But again, for those of you who are new in particular, we really want to make this as seamless of a process as possible. So we've been hard at work at that, and we'll continue from there. The other big shout out that I want to give here is to the marketplace team. So we had a crate list page before, and they've updated this to connect directly to the platform so that it will always be up to date. And if it's broken, Adam will fix everything. We'll get to pester him about that. But this will give you a filter system, and you can see all of the crates that are available. So I would encourage you guys to check this out as well. Shout outs to the marketplace team. This is an amazing update. So we're very excited about this. Otherwise, a lot of stuff cooking, a lot of stuff we're going to keep working on, and we're excited to tell you more about it in the future. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. So now we are actually going to jump into our first demo. And then after the demo, we're just going to have a bit of a conversation. I'm going to ask Kelvin and Amanda to talk a little bit about the Preday and some of the things they talked about there, and how we can bring some of that insight to you guys. But first, we'll jump over to Rod, who is going to have a demo for us.
Yep, thank you. This goes on for you guys. A few weeks ago, I gave a bit of a demo on what I was working with on our report consolidation and stuff. And this is just an enhancement on it as to what I've been able to do with this. And I think some of this stuff could really help, especially some newer people, when it comes to what to do with your data and what you can do with the data once Roost has got a hold of it. So just let me get the right page up. Here we go. His screen. So one of the things with the report data thing that I had was that this is a fairly comprehensive, going to multiple sources, getting the data, uploading them to databases and so forth. And it's not a workflow that you want to have running more than once at the same time. So what I had to do to come up with that was using an org variable. I really would like there to be a feature to check if something's running first, but in the meantime, the first thing that the workflow does is checks to see what the setting is if the report running variable is false. If it's not false, then it just doesn't do anything because it means that it's running. If it says it's okay, then the first thing it does is it sets it to false. Once it gets to the end, it sets it back to true. The only issue with it is that if it fails somewhere in between, and right now I have like on failures, it should go and reset it. But we've been having some failures where it's just hung and it's kept running and never been able to get there. So then the next time this ran, all it was doing was going through the first iteration. So it's not perfect, but at this point, it's working pretty well as long as it gets through. As I said before, we're taking data from 4 different sources, from Active Directory, from ThreatLocker, Halo, and Central. Each one of these workflows goes and grabs the data that we want, and then clears our database tables, and then sends all the data up into our database. So we're hosting all of our report data in a single SQL database. This particular workflow had to go into 4 different sets because the amount of data that this was grabbing was too big for Roost. Too many lines, and stuff failed on it. So had to separate our computers into multiple list of computers that they're grabbing stuff from. I thank all the ROC guys that helped me get through this. It was a fun process trying to figure out this stuff, even to the point where it's like, where some stuff would work within the workflow. If you went to the Jinja editor, there's too much information in the Jinja editor and you couldn't do anything in it. It would come up with errors. So that got worked through. So we do basically the same process, is that we go in, we grab our information, and then we send it to a SQL database. Originally, we were sending this to Azure Tables. Then with Azure Tables, you got to do it. you have to do an upload for each line item. This End Central stuff, if we had been kept doing it with Azure tables, would have had this workflow run for hours and hours. The advantage of doing a SQL database is we can send everything in one query. So the components that I want to go over that have helped here is how to use the SQL queries, and then how to utilize stuff with Power BI to report everything. As we go back to this, you said once all the data gets sent, then one of the last things that it will do here is refreshes the Power BI report that I have, so that in Power BI, automatically refreshes it, automatically keeps the main data that is there. The one thing that I found, the one thing that is great about the SQL is that you don't have to do too much with your formatting of the data. When you're doing stuff with Azure tables and stuff like that, you gotta format the data right so that it can be uploaded. What I've done with SQL allows the tables that we've created just has like an ID field, and it has one field for data. And so all the fields that are getting reported back in the JSON go into one field within SQL. And then when you add that SQL to Power BI, it then allows you to expand that to get all the columns you want. It made things a lot easier in that I did not have to do as much manipulation with the lists that I was grabbing from every source. A lot of the lists I could leave as is. I didn't have to do any formatting on them. Other ones didn't require much formatting at all. To show you an example, where is it? I got it open here somewhere. Yeah. If you see, these are all the tables that I've created for the data that we're grabbing. And when you view them, you want to look at your columns. You can just see there's a JSON field for all the data that goes in there. And just like I got a timestamp one and a row one that that created on this. This makes the uploading the data to the SQL database extremely fast. It's depending on the power of the SQL server you have. It's I can get a $7 Azure SQL server that will handle this, and you know what? It takes maybe about 10 minutes total to upload all the data. I can go and get a $20 server, which I've done now, which is twice the speed, and it will do it in just a few minutes. So I've gotten this workflow of sending all the data and everything down to about a 13-minute workflow, which was huge from when I originally started this. From the Power BI side of things, we've got a report now. It's got all the sources that have come in. I've set up the relationships with them, and I've been able to like cross-report data from multiple sources. So I want to go to our asset view. In one area, I can click on one of our assets, and I'm getting information about them from all different sources. I can see some of our threat locker stuff. I can see their Active Directory status, their status in Halo, applications, installed services, all this in one area. So I personally, I haven't been using Power BI for long, but since I've been starting to use it, I'm actually getting to love being able to use it with what's being able to be done with it. The last thing, once we got in here, yes, we report all this, but one of the things that I wanted to do as well is I wanted to be able to create tickets based on certain criteria that, you know what, if certain things were found, like we're doing and finding with this, we're able to look at our machines and see what machines potentially have issues in it, because ideally every machine should be in Active Directory, it should be in our Halo asset, it should be in Threat Locker, and it should be in N-Central. Before, trying to determine if machines were missing from one of the places was almost impossible. This allows me to check stuff, and something that's bad, I can look at this and, okay, it shows here, oh, this is a disabled computer in Active Directory. And it's disabled, but it's assigned to a user in Halo, which is wrong. It shouldn't be if it's disabled. It's not in Threat Locker, which technically is true. It shouldn't be if it's a disabled computer. And it gives the status in N-Central and how long it's been since it's been offline. The interesting thing here, though, is that it says it's only been offline 1 day. So this helps our service desk determine, hey, there's something wrong with this machine. It gives them the right area to look into. But as I said, I wanted to do stuff where I wanted to be able to create tickets and let people know rather than people having to come in here and always check stuff. So what I've done is I've created certain visuals that are based on certain criteria that I want a ticket opened for our service desk to look at. Computers that are in Active Directory, but they're not assigned in Halo, because technically in Halo we have anything that's not assigned means that it's not being used by a user, which means it shouldn't be in Active Directory. Same thing, Threat Locker computers not assigned in Halo. The same sort of thing. The tough part was how do I create a ticket on this? Now, people have Power BI. There's ways to set up notifications in Power BI, but you need to have a premium storage account for it. That starts at, I think, about $300 a month to do. Not realistic when we're not a big Power BI shop. But if you have a Power BI premium per user account, you have the ability to run a Power BI query, the same queries that are basically being run here. I am able to run them through the API. So what I have been able to do is in here, I go and check one of the fields that I want to do a report on. Go to Optimize, not Optimize, Performance Analyzer, start recording, refresh the visuals. So whichever visual I want here, AD computers not in Halo, I can go and, why is that one not letting me do that? Okay, suddenly I don't know why this isn't letting me copy the query, but generally you can get, why this is not doing this here, I do not know, but you can get the data of the query that's actually being performed here. From doing that, I set up a Power BI integration that allows me to go to get the report data, which all I have to do is I set up the URL path for the Power BI query, and in the body, I can put the same Power BI query that Power BI is using to grab that same information. So it grabs from that, it goes and gets the data. From that data, I can either, if there's data there, I can either create a ticket or I can add to a ticket if a ticket exists. And that's basically using some of the stuff I have here that checks in Halo to see if the same ticket that ran yesterday, if that ticket's still open, it will add to that ticket. If it's not there, it will create a new ticket. If there's no data at all, if it grabs, if that list comes blank, then it doesn't do anything. Yes, I see someone's got their hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
especially-
real quick, I don't want to take too much longer because I know there's other speakers, but how much time is it saving you?
Oh, well, I would say a ton mainly because it's it's being able to do stuff that we couldn't really have done before. And we didn't get done to before because the work would have been huge, trying to go to different sources, get their data, and try to get a consolidation of what stuff, of all the data. Basically, trying to do it manually would have been like, it would have taken way too long. So, like, to me, this whole thing on if we were actually doing these same things manually, this would probably save us like 10, 20 hours a week. Things that take so long. Having this data available makes it so quick. It's allowing us to actually get things done that weren't getting done because we really didn't have the way to see it and grab that data. But the important thing that I want to go from this is this has been a challenge for me. Is always I wanted to do stuff reports, and it's like, well, what do we do? What can we do with this data that we're grabbing? I found all the workflows that will get this data. Some of the built-in ones, and it would send it to Hoodoo or whatever. But how do I get it somewhere and efficiently so that I can actually do stuff with? And that was a challenge. Okay, what sources can I send it to? What sources work well? As I said, Azure Tables seemed great at first. Then when I realized the performance on it, it was like, I got to find something different from it. The fact of using Power BI, the one advantage of Power BI too that helps it is a lot of the stuff like the alerting I've done here that queries stuff in Power BI. Some of the stuff could be done through Jinja, I'm quite sure. It would be a lot more difficult, especially for somebody that's new to do that. It was a lot easier for me, at least, to say, hey, I'm going to take the data, I'm going to send it to Power BI, then I'm going to manipulate it there, right? Rather than trying to manipulate it within the Jinja, with Jinja. So, like, I offer this. If anyone, as I said, especially new people are trying to see what to do with data and how to do this stuff, as I said, I was able to set up the SQL queries to do it. Then there's the Power BI queries and stuff that work together that have allowed me to do stuff. And I'm much more willing, if anyone else needs help with stuff like this, I do offer. You can reach out to me on the Discord, and I'm more than happy to try to show how you can do some of these things. Now, these still aren't 100% complete, because now I have to work on putting some error control in here, right? A little bit more smart. So these have been evolving constantly for me.
That's really awesome. Thank you so much, Rod. Does anybody want to ask any questions, or does anybody have any experiences similar? Before we move on, we can have a moment to chat. Anybody in the room? If not, all right. Yes, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing how your experience with these things grow. Oh, Chris, did you have your hand up, or was that just
accident? My bad.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Yes, that's really awesome. Love seeing all the work that's being put in there. Now for the next 13 minutes, what I actually wanted to do was have a little bit of a chat. If anybody is having any problems hearing us, please let us know in the chat so that we can adjust the sound. But we had a pre-day at Rob at the beginning of this week. And Calvin and Amanda were both invited to come in and talk a little bit about their experiences. And I wanted to give them an opportunity to share some of this information with you, and also have some discourse if anybody has any questions. Which one of you wants to?
I'm gonna let Kelvin go first this time.
No, you can go first.
No, I want you to go first. I have almost no voice.
Very good. So if you missed the pre-day, then you really missed a very fun session. You should have been here. Everyone should have been here. Next time, come to ROC. Come to RabbitMQ. It's a really fun event. In the pre-day, we were talking about how you can create that automation excellence center, or how does Aaron call it again? The automation
center of excellence. It came from like so I started this entire call off with sending your kid if they have a heart defect to a center of excellence, and that's kind of how we came up with the term automation center of excellence. And Kelvin, do you mind if I talk about COEs for a minute?
Please go ahead.
Since you got me rambling, you got me on my soapbox.
It's so easy to do this.
Like for the folks that haven't heard me talk about COEs before, it's an automation center of excellence, and all we did was name it. You folks actually came up with the idea. We just kind of wrote down what we saw working. You know, we're always looking for patterns on why some MSPs just completely blow it out of the water when it comes to automating themselves. And there's a lot of little bits and pieces like alignment between the leadership and the engineering. But at the end of the day, it was this whole automation center of excellence concept, which is just 3 different types of people. An executive sponsor, think of like the CEO of the MSP or the owner. An automation, I would call them like a subject matter expert, like someone who knows how your help desk works, someone who knows how your SOC may work or your NOC may work. They don't have to know how to automate anything. They just need to know what sucks, like what tickets suck. And then an automation person, someone who puts on their hat every now and then and builds an automation. And the combination of those 3 different roles is what we saw made for the, perfect automated MSP. Like the person in the NOC identifies the crummy ticket. They then send it to the executive sponsor and they say, I never want to do this ticket again. The executive sponsor looks at it and they go, you know what, you're right. I never want you to do this ticket again. And then they send it to the person who's wearing the automation hat to get it done. And the reason why that's so important is if you just leave it to the automation person to come up with all the automation ideas, sure, things are going to get automated, but they may not be things that impact your business. It's going to be something that just impacts that automation engineer's day. Sorry.
Don't apologize, Aaron. You just told my entire story. It's okay. It's okay. My entire presentation was simply repeating that. No, I was actually talking about how I've built the culture at Lime Networks and how you slowly develop the people into that automation center of excellence. You have to make sure that over time you think about what people are you going to place in what position to get the best out of them. And then it's not just the people. It's during the presentation, during the pre-day, I spoke about 5 big factors that helped us grow. And right now, because we probably don't have that much time, I'll only focus on one of them, which was one of the last ones that I said. It's that getting your clients and your people themselves involved with the actual process is the only way they're going to automate everything that should be automated. An example of that I used during the pre-day is reimbursements. My team had an issue where every day they had to fill in their reimbursements manually, send it to Iris, our administrative assistant. She then booked it into the Dutch QuickBooks. Then she copied the data from somewhere. Then she finally transferred the reimbursement to people. And for her, this was a bother. This took an hour out of her day every day, and my automation people never saw that as a priority. I'm talking about 10 years ago. This isn't a recent thing. About 10 years ago, my automation team saw things such as my disk is full as a high priority ticket. They didn't see that they needed to help the business automate everything, and slowly pushing them towards that, slowly making sure that they, yes, that's correct. But slowly pushing them towards actually letting the client get involved, whether it is an internal client or an external client, getting them involved in the selection of the process, and then sort of getting their voice heard is enough to start automatically getting your team to think about automation in the right way. Just having extra stakeholders that are a part of your automation team or your process team or your client. That is the biggest change that I think we saw in the development of our automation center of excellence. Please remember, our teams started with 2 or 3 automators and eventually ended up with 25 now, 26 automators, all people that are super skilled, but we're only able to get into that role because we started asking our client, where does it hurt? Where is the actual pain? How are you fixing some of these things? Show me where it hurts. So yeah, we just ask the client instead of assuming that we know best and solving all these cool technical issues. I mean, a lot of clients came to us and said, a good one is a gaming studio that we work for. We actually helped decrease the development time of a multi-million-dollar video game that maybe some of you played, Horizon Zero Dawn. We helped decrease the development time of that by 4 years. It's amazing. It's just by listening to, what are you doing that hurts? Well, we're carrying hard disks over from our rendering workstations to these other farms and plugging them in every day. And it was just listening to them saying, oh, this is a painful experience. And they're saying, oh, we can automate that. That was most of my Preday talk.
Mine was just about how to hear the opportunity. So kind of what Kelvin was talking about, like you get in front of the client or the person internally, and how do you work through what it is that could be automated, and kind of thinking of the steps of that. I also talked about automation we use internally to support technicians to make the right decisions, because decision making can sometimes be overwhelming, especially between what management wants, ownership wants, and what the technicians understand the process to be. As a company, we've been taking a lot of our processes outside of the documentation system and using both Roost and our PSA and customizing them so that there really is only one way to do something, and that it prompts and asks the right questions to make sure that things aren't missed. And to Kelvin's point, when I was listening to your Preday, I was thinking about it going, what you said was really powerful, the part where you have to sit with the person and watch the process from beginning to end, because you can't tell if you're, talking to a person who's in finance, you can't tell what it is that needs to be automated without seeing where the pain is first, but also the entire thing from beginning to end. Because one of the things I went over in my talk was, like, you have to consider if it's possible, right? If you talk to a user and they're going to tell you, I don't like this part, I want it to go away, the technological mind has to hear the opportunity within that about where you can actually apply the solve for whatever you're going to build out automation wise. That's a succinct I'm going to get, because I'm worried about more jokes about Dutch QuickBooks.
Do you mean QuickBooks?
Amanda, where can people see us next?
I think a lot of this setup in terms of what both Kelvin and I are talking about is because I believe that automation as a service is going to be the next line item for MSPs to be able to offer to our clients what we can do. If you want to maybe hear me talk more about it or come talk to me about it, I would say come to MSP GeekCon. Tickets are on sale now, early bird until I think April 1st.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it right. I'd love to chat more about automation at the automation community table.
So where else can they chat more about automation other than MSP GeekCon?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm tired. Oh, okay. Yes. Hi, Ashley. Yes. Also, go to Flow. Buy your tickets there for that too.
Has anyone posted the link in chat?
Yeah, post-
We're 2 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or things they want to talk about before we wrap up?
The water bottles and the MGM grant of $22, take them out of any bar.
How do we collect the lamp?
There's lots of questions on lamp boots.
Oh, this is
Right.
that.
Brad has his hand up. What's up, Brad?
Yeah, I just thought I'd add, it's not to demonstrate here, but again, if anybody is interested, came up with a way yesterday is I wanted in a form to actually display sort of dynamic data in it, and it's like the text markdown fields that you could put in there. They can't reference a context. So I basically tricked a drop-down box that returns only one value and picks it to auto-populate, which basically allows me to display some context information automatically in a form after something else has been selected. The case where I did this was we select a mailbox that we want to restore, and I got two fields that show the size of the mailbox and the size of the archive so that we can see this data before we know that wherever we're restoring it to, we need to make sure we got room for it. So it's a little trick for basically being able to show context data within an actual form.
I just wanted to answer a question somebody else asked earlier. They asked if Kelvin talked about negative time savings in his talk, and he did, in fact, talk about negative time savings.
I think I spent like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you did.
All right.
It went on a little bit for a while.
Did you talk about the negative, like epoch second?
No. I go back to 10 seconds.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour, everybody. I want to thank everyone for joining. Thanks, Rod, for your presentation. I miss you folks at RabbitMQ. I wish I was in the room with you.
We missed you too, Aaron.
Thank you for all getting together for the call today. With that, we'll see you folks next. We'll see you folks next Friday. Please help your peers in the coop.
Meow.
See you guys.